Hello, dear ones. Father Peter John, coming to you from All Saints Orthodox Church, Bloomington, Indiana. Christ is in our midst. I want to talk to you today about one of the greatest dendrites of all time, St. David of Thessaloniki. I would start by showing you his icon here. I want you to see, note the beard, white as snow, very long. I'll come to that a little bit later. He's got this little basket with a rope and some water in there, obviously people helping him in his tree, his icon of Christ, his hand blessing, his scroll, etc. Oh, and just take a picture in your mind of this robe, because we'll come back to that as well. St. David of Thessaloniki, he was actually not from Thessaloniki. He was an Arab, probably from Syria, Mesopotamia, somewhere in there. And he went to Thessaloniki to become a monk at a young age, probably in his late teens. He was so fervent in his spiritual life, in his prayer, in his service of others. He caught the attention of the other monks. They saw this example of somebody who lived to serve and to pray. And when their abbot died, they asked David to become the new abbot of the monastery. Well, David, in his great humility, decided to climb a tree instead. He climbed up an almond tree that was right next to the church in the monastery, and he stayed there for 3 years. That's right, 3 years. Summer heat, winter cold, David in the tree. So David's up there in the tree, and he's praying up there fervently, and he's asking God for his will to be done, and he's trying to discern the will of God. And after 3 years, an angel appears to him and tells him, he says, David, he says, your prayer has been heard. There is one major task you're going to have in your life later on, but now get out of the tree and go to your cell and pray. And so that's what David did. He got down. There was actually like an entourage of people there, the Archbishop of Thessaloniki and others, when they learned that David was coming down. I mean, just think about this, right? It's a big deal. I mean, we hear a lot of interesting and crazy kind of stories about saints and monks and stuff, but they're spread out over 2,000 years. But when you've actually got a monk that everyone knows is very holy, and he climbs a tree and he stays there for 3 years, everybody hears about it. So naturally, when he's going to come down from the tree, everybody hears about it, and they're all gathered around to watch. Well, anyway, he comes out of the tree, and he goes to his cell, he shuts the door, and he prays for 20 years. Well, you'll recall that there was this time in history where Thessaloniki was subject to the attacks of barbarian hordes. You know, those people living outside the bounds of the empire, and they would come in and encroach and take what they wanted and burn things, and then they would leave. And so that was going on at this time. And so David, he's in his cell. There was this wall in Thessaloniki, and there were guards up on the wall. They were watching to see when the barbarians might be approaching. Well, one night they're up there, and they see flames coming out of the windows of David's cell, and they are just alarmed. They realize, oh no, the barbarians must have attacked, and they set David's cell on fire. This is terrible. Well, in the morning, the sun comes up and they go to investigate, and there's nothing wrong. His cell is fine. It's untouched. So the next night, they are up on the wall and they see flames again, and they go, oh no, it's the barbarians. They go, wait a minute. In the morning, they go check it out. There's nothing wrong. It's untouched. Well, this happens night after night after night. And people begin to hear about it, and they realize what's going on. He's in there praying, and he's praying so fervently that there are flames coming out of the windows. You know, we think of the Lord in the burning bush, you know, the bush which burned but was not consumed. You know, we think of Christ transfigured on Mount Tabor. I mean, there are all sorts of places in history we can think about in Christian history where there is fire and the saints are not burned, the three holy children in the flames, etc. Well, that's what he's doing, and it attracts a crowd. People start making pilgrimages to the guard's wall, so that in the middle of the night they can witness the flames coming from of David's windows from his cell. I mean, it's just amazing, right? So David has quite this reputation as a man of God and a man of prayer in Thessaloniki. Well, at the end of 20 years, the Archbishop of Thessaloniki comes to him and says, David, there is a dire circumstance. We need your help. I need you to go as my representative to go and talk to the Emperor Justinian. We need you to take care of this for us. And David agrees, and he goes. He takes a helper with him. Well, when he comes out of his cell, he has a beard that is gleaming white all the way down to his feet. And in the back, his hair has grown down in the back. It goes all the way down his back. And he's wearing this monastic robe. The monastery he was a part of had these very special outfits, right? And it included this cloak that had a huge, big old hood on it. And so when you weren't wearing the hood, it was just down over your shoulders. It was like Jedi times 10. Forgive me. All right, so he walks out. Everyone's like, whoa, because he's just gleaming white with his white hair and his beard and his awesome robes and his prayerfulness that produces flames, and he travels to Constantinople, where he enters the court of Justinian. He walks in, Justinian's talking to somebody else, he's got some other business he's handling, and so David goes over and he picks out a live coal, and he gets a handful of incense and he puts it on the live coal, and he walks around the imperial court saying prayers, blessing and sanctifying the whole room and every person in it. We are told from the first-hand account that he prayed for nearly an hour with the coal and the incense in his hand. Well, at the end of his prayers, obviously Justinian was so overwhelmed by the holiness of this man and by, I'm sure, his appearance, his otherworldly appearance, that Justinian heard him out and gave him whatever he wanted, which then was exactly what they needed, what Thessaloniki needed. And then David boards a ship to go back to Constantinople, or back to his home in Thessaloniki. On the way there, the Lord reveals that he will be departing this life in peace shortly. So he told the people, he said, please bury my body in Thessaloniki. And of course they said, what do you mean? You're still alive. At which point he breathed his last and was buried back home in Thessaloniki. What a man. What a man. May we all have the fervent prayer that flames come out of our windows, but not real flames, because anyway. Thanks be to God for all things. Holy Saint David, the Dendrite of Thessaloniki, pray unto God for us. Christ is in our midst. He is and ever shall be.